nice to see you.
Hi, Risa. Hello, hello from Mexico. How you doing?
I know it's still cold up here, so I wish I were in Mexico right now.
What? How
And
cold is it?
you don't want to know. It's in the 40s today.
Oh, we're double. It's
Thanks.
I know.
Thanks.
Yeah, yeah. The weather's still nice here. It's we're in like the low 80s right now.
So it's a great segue into what we're going to talk about today, which is why Puerto Vallarta is a great place to retire in 2022. So we're going to kind of go through your list of why you think it's such an ideal place. I mean, you've been living in Puerto Vallarta for how long now?
I've been here full time since 2003, so it's 19 years. Yeah,
Wow.
it's amazing. Time flies. Yeah.
Yeah, no kidding. My God. And I see that, Puerto Vallarta really, every time I go, it seems to be changing so much. There's so much development going on, there's so
Hmm.
much growth.
Yeah.
There's a huge influx of foreigners that are kind of figuring out. I think it's been discovered, quite frankly.
Yeah.
Um, but why don't we start a little bit in the beginning in terms of what appealed to you what appealed to you to move to Puerto Vallarta
Hmm.
and what still kind of holds true for you?
Okay. Well, let's kind of go back almost 21 years now. Um, I had a big milestone birthday coming up, and I didn't want to spend it in Los Angeles. So, a friend of mine at that time, he had been to Vallarta before, and he said, "Why don't we go there?" And I knew nothing about PV. I said, "Sure," So we bought our tickets, came down, and immediately, right when I stepped off the plane, so this is like November 2nd, 2001. Um, right when I stepped off the plane, I could feel I was in the tropics. All of a sudden I could see the mountains, and then we get in our the car. We had a pickup, and we're going through downtown, and I can see the ocean. It's old world, the church, the boardwalk, the Malecon. It was just like I just stepped back in time. So it was really, really charming, just taking that 20-minute drive south. I was there. I was in PV for 9 days, and immediately fell in love with it. The cobblestone streets, the weather was just great. The ocean. We were renting a condo right on the beach on Los Muertos Beach, so I could hear the waves crashing every single day, and just kind of the smell of the salt water was really great. And people were just really, really charming and laid back, again, it just felt like I went back in time to the days when life was simpler. Um,
Yeah.
so, right from that first trip, and I decided to move to PV. So I gave myself a 2-year plan to kind of take care of to like take care of all these arrangements in Los Angeles. And I packed it up and I moved down here.
That's so cool. That's
Yeah.
so amazing. So you basically did what so many people dream of doing. And so I know, we've had many conversations about how to help people
Hmm.
make that leap. Because I think a lot of it is psychological, but then it's also the information and making sure that you have the right information.
Yeah.
So let's just start kind of simply. Where is Puerto Vallarta geographically,
Okay.
in Mexico?
Yeah. So Puerto Vallarta is in the state of Jalisco, and it's on the west coast. So it's a colonial resort town right on the beach on the Pacific side. So from Los Angeles, it's roughly like a 2 hour and 45-minute flight. There are a lot of direct flights from the States and Canada coming down to PV now. We're the first tropical climate south of the US border. We've got the Sierra Madre Mountains on the east, we've got the ocean to the west, and you have all the wonderful things in between. So it's a really close proximity to the States and Canada, which makes it very appealing for a lot of people. So they don't have to do all these connection flights to get down here. They don't spend a full day trying to get to this destination.
What do you think makes PV so appealing to so many foreigners? What makes it unique versus any other coastal town in Mexico?
Yeah, very good question. Well, we're the only colonial coastal resort town in the entire country. So there are a lot of other beach towns, but it's more modern. It doesn't have the old world charm like PV does. And there are a lot of wonderful things about Vallarta. Let's talk about the weather for once. We just brought that up. The average temperature here would be like in the low 80s. During the winter, sometimes it's in the upper 70s. And then it'll warm up, as the months go on as we head into summer. But the weather definitely, I think the climate is a big plus.
You have to like humidity.
You have to like humidity because summertime it is humid. August, September, and parts of October, I would say, are the most humid months. So if you're not used to it, It might be a shock the first time you're here, but if you're coming from places like Florida or parts of Texas or even near Chicago, and it gets humid there, just kind of calculate that in there if you're going to come down here and make that big move. So if you've never been here in the summer, I recommend coming down here for a few weeks and kind of getting a feel for it, for sure.
Every place I feel like has their, bad season, right? And I would imagine, so summer, rainy season,
Hmm.
in PV is probably like that. Although I have to say the rainy season is kind of cool because it's not like it rains all day like it does here in New York. It mainly rains at night, but
Hmm.
it is torrential,
Yeah.
torrential.
Well, we do have the big tropical downpours, and you're right. It doesn't. It's rare that it rains like 24 or 48 hours. Usually, the clouds are coming in the afternoon, like anywhere from 2, 3, 4 o'clock, and typically it'll start raining in the early evening or late at night. And sometimes, the drop of rain could be like the size of a soda bottle. I mean, it's just sheets can start coming down, and other times it just drizzles. I mean, one of the things I love about the rainy season is that the mountainside is just so lush and so green. It's like somebody took like a green blanket and just draped it over the trees. So it's a totally different vibe and a different feel. And watching the electrical storm, they're like spider webs of like lightning, scattering from the sky all over the ocean. It's really, really majestic just watching that. Um, and the town is more quiet. It's warmed up in the States, so there's less reason for people to come down here. So there there are less people in town. But it's I love that, and I like it when it's really busy during the peak season, which is typically from November until the end of April. And then we have the shoulder months, May and June. July, you have a lot of families and kids coming down here because the kids are out of school. August, September, it's a little bit more quiet, and then end of October, things start revving up again for November and the start of the new season. So those are kind of like the cycles we go through, and with each of that comes its own little weather pattern, so which is nice.
So tell me, why is Puerto Vallarta such a great place to retire?
Mhm.
Why should people even consider it, do you think?
Yeah, well, a lot of things. Well, besides the weather, we do have the community and the culture. People in Vallarta have been known to be very friendly and very inviting. Restaurant, retail stores, and family-owned businesses. They remember their customers and they even socialize with them and invite them to go places. Especially if like the waiter or the business owner finds out it's your first or second time here and you haven't really explored the city. Don't be surprised if they start inviting you to go out with them to these little areas what that's off the beaten path. Health and dental care here is excellent. We have a wide range of medical and dental services throughout the city at a fraction of the cost which you would pay for in the States and Canada. From level 1 to level 4 trauma centers, you're going to get MRI, CT scans. It's very, very affordable. And we have state of the art, technology and equipment, bilingual staff, doctors, so you don't have to worry about, if you're going to be able to convey, what's going on with you to your doctor. Excuse me, and hospitals oftentimes here have an emergency evacuation services. So God forbid they can't provide a certain service here, they can get you out of here.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and I have taken tours of hospitals and clinics and dentist clinics. And yeah, so for a typical checkup, say, what would that cost?
Like when I go to my dentist, it's like $50, get teeth cleaning and does an exam for me. Um, and I've been to the emergency a few times. One time I was dehydrated a few years ago, and then another time I had some type of infection, and it was just a couple of $100 to get in, get out, get the medicine. I even had an IV. The doctor came and took X-rays of my chest. So I mean the it doesn't cost an arm and a leg here to get sick. That kind of just to throw it out there for you. Um,
Right, right.
you
No,
know,
that's
and
true,
and
and
you know,
that's
most
huge.
yeah, and that's huge. And you don't feel like you're like cattle, like kind of going through the ranch. They're trying to get you through. They're not necessarily playing for numbers there. Like you sometimes feel back at home. So you do get that more customized service and attention here. And doctors will sometimes give you their cell numbers. They'll text you. They'll send you a
Oh
WhatsApp
my God.
email to see how you're doing. I know that's not a common practice in the States, right? So
No.
it's a lot more familiar and friendly, and that kind of feels good. A friend of mine. Craig, he had knee surgery last June. His partner, wasn't feeling well, to drive the long distance from PV to Bucerias, which is actually just about maybe 30, 40 minutes depending on traffic. But the doctor sent someone from the hospital, came over, picked up Craig and Conchas Chinas, took him to the hospital, had the operation. I think he spent a night or two, and then brought him back home. So, and that was all included in the price.
Wow, it's amazing. Yeah,
Yeah.
the care level is just, you can't even compare it, right? I know that in Mexico, they also do house calls as well. Is that right?
Yeah, so house calls are pretty common over here in PV. Again, it does not cost you an arm and a leg like they would in other, more developed countries, but that is available here, which is wonderful. So, I mean, if you're not feeling well, you can't drive, you're alone, you need some medical attention, so you have that option, which is great.
So let's talk about getting around. I know that you don't necessarily need a car, although it's kind of convenient to have a car because you have your Costco's and your big
Yeah.
La Comer supermarkets and that sort of thing.
hmm
Um, but you also have Uber, right? And buses?
Yes, the public transportation here, the buses, I mean, they're like running every 30 seconds. I mean, you're not going to have a problem. I'm not exaggerating. I mean, seriously. I mean, at each bus stop, I mean, they're just kind of going and going. So that's fantastic, and it doesn't cost much. It's like $1 or less. You do have cabs. You do have Uber out here as well. And that's what a lot of people do. I have a lot of clients and friends who moved here from the big cities, from Canada and the States, and they kind of refuse to drive ever again. So, taking the public transportation and taking the cabs has worked for them. Because I'm selling real estate, I need a car and I need to drive around. But what's nice over here versus Los Angeles, everything is in pretty close proximity to one another. So it's not like I'm spending, 3 or 4 hours just to go to one or two grocery stores and come back. Within about an hour, I've hit like, 3 stops and I'm done. So that's really convenient having everything in such close proximity in PV that you're not, spending your day on the highway.
So for someone who lives there, and is not vacationing there,
hmm
because it is known to be a very hot, vacation spot,
Yeah.
what are some of the things to do? Like if you're retired, what makes the lifestyle so appealing, would you say?
Yeah, I mean, Vallarta has definitely it has its touristy areas, but that's not all of it. A lot of people that have retired here, they join social groups. I mean, besides going to the beach and playing cards and hanging out there all day, there are hiking groups, there are like bike groups. People go on the boats. There's a botanical garden, which is wonderful, or just kind of walking around town. I mean, it's really charming. Walking through El Centro, through like the hills of downtown, which is a Gringo Gulch. So when you walk through there, you kind of feel like you're in old world Italy. The streets are really narrow. Um,
You have tons of galleries.
Galleries, restaurants, a family-owned retail stores. I mean, there's a lot to do out here, which is wonderful. And for families, I mean, there are a lot of people moving down here, young couples with kids, and there are a lot of bilingual schools over here. So people are not afraid to kind of move down here that are not retired and raise their families here as well.
Right, right. No, I totally agree. And it's nice because it's also very centrally located. So if you wanted, you could take a, day trip to Sayulita or go down, to Mismaloya or Punta Mita or, Bucerias or wherever, right? So this
Yeah.
all like within driving distance, which is also really fun.
Yeah, so Banderas Bay, from the northern tip, that's where Punta de Mita is located, and then you go all the way down. It's kind of like a crescent moon, and it goes down to Cabo Corrientes, right? That's where the botanical gardens are at. But that whole strip, there are a whole bunch of beach towns, like you mentioned. Just north of it, there's also Sayulita and San Francisco, which is called San Pancho. But hitting La Cruz de Guanacaxtle, Bucerias, Nueva Vallarta, those are all communities all along the bay. So I mean, there's a lot to do and a lot to explore. And that's one of the nice things about the Bay is that, it's not just Vallarta and that's it. Vallarta is pretty much located like smack in the middle of the crescent moon. So it is literally central. And from there, you can just kind of take a day trip north or south and kind of enjoy totally different scenery. To the north, it's a bit more built. So you'll see a lot more condos and gated communities and commercial. As you go south of Vallarta, it's a lot less developed. So there's a lot more jungle, the mountains, and just primarily like condos on the beach and some houses on the hillside. And the further south you go, the less built out it is. It's more jungle.
That's great. That's great. So there's something for everyone,
There's
actually.
something for everyone. Another thing, since we're talking about the whole bay, another nice thing is, the beaches, from the beaches from Punta de Mita and coming down, and they're all quite different from one another. Los Muertos Beach and the beach in Mismaloy is totally different. The further south you go, it becomes a bit more, the water's a bit more calm and like really turquoise and the beautiful emerald green color. And the further north you go, that totally changes. Nueva Vallarta has some of those beautiful beaches. I mean, talk about white sand. I mean, just it's like silk out there. It's beautiful.
So let's kind of switch gears and talk about real estate and talk
Hmm.
about homes because people, if they're going to move down there, they're going to need a place to stay, a
Yeah.
place to live. And I know that the market is really ridiculously hot right now, like it
Hmm.
is pretty much everywhere. Um, so talk to me a little bit about, the costs involved in terms of whether it's a condo or a home. So what are some of the things that people should be thinking about, and what can, say, a two bedroom,
Okay.
how much does someone have to spend to get a two bedroom, two bath, for
Okay.
example?
Well, interesting enough, just a few days ago, I was looking at the numbers comparing for the entire bay, Banderas Bay, comparing the first quarter of 2021 versus the first quarter of this year, 2022. And the numbers were quite impressive. Let me pull this up. I kind of put a few things here together. I'm just kind of tell you some of these numbers, and Risa, I think you'll be shocked. So in 2021, total MLS registered condo sales, 286 units. That's just the first quarter of last year. So this year, 344 condo units have sold in the first quarter. So that's an increase of over 20%. And I'm not shocked because in the first quarter of this year, I was like, God, I think we're busier than last year. And last year, I think our office broke its record. So that would be at the highest dollar volume sales in the history of the company. And so far this year, we're ahead of what we did last year. The number of houses sold the first quarter last year was 65, and this year 72. So that's a moderate, almost 11% increase. The average, so looking at condos versus houses, obviously, we're primarily a condo market here, because a lot of people that are retiring, they kind of want to simplify their life, and having a condo lifestyle is, I think, it's a lot less strenuous in terms of maintenance than having a house and everything kind of rests on your shoulders, right? So the average condo sales price, now this is for the entire bay, for last year registered in the MLS for 2021, was $340,000. That's the average for the last year for the first
No
quarter.
matter what size.
No
That
matter
was
what
just the
size.
average.
Yeah, this is not specific to studios versus three bedroom versus two bedroom. This is just the whole market there. So $340,000 was the average sales price for the first quarter last year. This year, $362,000. So that's an increase of around 6.5%. For
Wow.
houses, the average sales price first quarter last year was 507,000. This year, 552,000. So that's a 9% increase. So everything is going up in terms of the number of units sold and the property values as well. Now, where are people investing is really interesting because when I moved here and I started real estate, there are only certain pockets where a lot of foreigners were investing, and those were the popular areas at that time. As Vallarta's popular has grown, so has all of Banderas Bay. So when I moved here 19 years ago versus now, the city and the entire bay is completely different. Things are growing everywhere. You know, if we look from the North Shore, so North Shore, remember we had Punta de Mita on the northern tip. If you go just south of Punta de Mita, you have La Cruz and Guanacaxtla. That's just north of Bucerias. Bucerias being the more popular neighborhood in that North Shore region. So just in La Cruz, the average sales price for a condo this year is 332,000. So that's a 4%
Wow.
increase over last year. Yeah. And actually we know there's a shortage of listings versus last year. Last year at this time there were 80 condos listed in the MLS. This year for the first quarter we had only 58. So yeah, so we're and that's kind of the case in a lot of the areas throughout the bay. There's just a shortage of inventory. So
That's the same
Buceria,
here in the States.
it's
Yeah.
the same thing in the States. Yes, Los Angeles. My family lives in LA, and there's just a shortage of inventory, and that's also helped driving prices up. If you look at Bucerias, these numbers are big. So in Bucerias, last year the average sales price for a condo first quarter was $250,000. Not bad. This year, the average sales price, $345,000. So I know that's a 38% increase over last year. Yes. So again, inventory. I mean, there were 302 units last year, the first quarter, right? Also keep in mind, we're just kind of coming out of the real scary part of COVID. I mean, the lockdown just happened in March. So by the end of 2020, people were just starting to go on with their lives and kind of, because everyone just kind of put the brakes on everything, and then towards the end of last year, at least for real estate for us, things started to pick up. So we had 302 units the first quarter of last year. This year, 195. That's a huge drop. Those are a lot of condos that have sold in Bucerias, right? Nueva Vallarta. So Nueva Vallarta is just when you go to the north of the Vallarta airport. You're in the state of Nayarit, and that's where Nuevo, Bucerias, La Cruz is all located. So in Nueva Vallarta, inventory is down 28%. And the average sales price for a condo there is $272,000. Now, Nueva Vallarta, it's a totally different vibe. It's all flat. They do have a mall. The beaches are beautiful. You do have large resorts all along the beach over there. And then you have a lot of gated communities as well. So a couple of golf courses are out there. So it really appeals to people who love golf and who kind of want more laid back lifestyle. You have canals there. There are a whole bunch of houses along the canal. So it's a totally different setting than Bucerias versus Puerto Vallarta. And that's another nice thing about Banderas Bay. You have a little bit of everything for everyone. So as we go south, so now if you look at the Marina Vallarta, which is, the first region just south of the airport, this area is growing considerably. Nothing was happening in the marina for quite some time, but in the last few years, a few condominium buildings have gone up. So for the first quarter of this year, sales were up 41%. Um,
What?
yeah. So the average sales price is 440,000 in Nueva Vallarta. Yes. So
Wow.
yeah. Francis, it's all growing, and these are all great numbers. I mean, people ask me, "Well, aren't you kind of afraid? It's growing too fast." For a long time, nothing was happening, and things were just kind of mellow. But it's the market. The market dictates the pace and what's going on. It's not the realtor, it's not the developer. If there's no supply and demand, you know, the projects wouldn't be built. So
Right.
another really great area that's kind of coming into its own is Fluvial and Versailles. That's where our Costco is located. La Comer grocery store is that. And Fluvial, the average sales price for this year is $218,000. So that's an increase of 24% over last year. Um, and because this area is booming, there are a lot of new construction going up. So we're kind of running low on inventory there as well, but there are a lot of new projects in the pipeline that are coming up, and it's slowly being referred to as the new town, whereas the romantic zone is often referred to as the old town. There are a lot of mom and pop little restaurants and different eateries and specialty stores are there. There are a lot of medical facilities, throughout Versailles and Fluvial, and they're adjacent to one another. And if you look at the map from the marina down to Conchas Chinas, Fluvial Versailles is smack in the middle, so it really is in the heart of, I say, Puerto Vallarta proper, in a sense. And then just where the church is at, where the Malecon and Boardwalk, we call that Central North in our business. And so the average sales price in Central North is 305,000. So that's gone up 42% versus the first quarter of last year. Central South is the most popular region. That's where the romantic zone is at. Alta Vista. Adjacent to the romantic zone is a region called El Caloso. There's a big project coming up there as well. And average sales price this year, 416,000. Last year it was 333,000. So that's a 25% increase in the property values. The number of
Wow.
units sold in the first quarter of last year in this region is 53. This year it's 74. So that's an increase of 40%. And last but not least, we look at the South Shore. That's where Amapas, Conchas Chinas, Mismaloya, all the way down to Boca de Tomatlan. Boca de Tomatlan is just south of Mismaloya. And inventory there is down 23%. So we've got a big shortage down there. We need more product. And the average sales price there is just under $500,000. That's a
Wow. So
mouthful.
things are pretty much booming across the board.
Yeah, it's booming across the board, and there's something for everyone. When I moved over here, there weren't, Vallarta wasn't that popular. So now, plus, we didn't have all the bells and whistles of all these buildings. I mean, pretty much it was just like the concrete building, maybe a little rooftop pool, and that's about it. Now we're having more like luxurious buildings going up, and also more modest buildings as well, with just maybe a couple of amenities. But we're having places now with co-working space, like one of the projects that we just launched in Fluvial has that. Um, People are building condos with like a home office. They have a fitness center. Of course, there's like a rooftop pool. Some of them have spas. So you're getting a lot for your money.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
so awesome. Yeah. So, I mean, so if people are interested in retiring to Puerto Vallarta, what are some of the first steps that one should do in terms of their research or?
Yeah, like most of us, me too. If I want to go somewhere, I start, getting on the internet and kind of, Googling and doing some investigation. But, oftentimes, Risa, correct me if I'm wrong, sometimes you come across conflicting information. One person says one thing, another one says another. So you don't know, which is the truth. Is it down the middle? Is it one side or not? So I think it's really important to reach out to professionals in the area, and find out from them whether it's someone who's actually made the move. Someone who has experience. Whether if you're going to be buying a place, contact a reputable realtor. You could also go on some of the social media sites and ask, people there if who they've used as a realtor, whether like a rental broker or for real estate sales. Interview a few people, find out what their experience is and who are their clients, who they worked for, how many years they've been in the business. Definitely find a reputable real estate attorney. That is key. That's very, very important. Find out, which notaries they work with. Some notaries have more experience in one field, like real estate, than others. Not every single notary here in PV we work with for real estate transactions. Not that there's anything wrong with them, but you have your network of professionals that you work with, and you just kind of stick with it because you know how the engine's going to run and how things are going to move along, and you're going to get to a successful end, right? So it's really important to find out the professionals and people that have the experience who've actually made the move to kind of hear from the horse's mouth, really. Just don't believe anything you kind of read and watch online or anywhere. Just at some point you need to delve in yourself and do your own research, because if you're making a big move like this, you want to make sure that you get all the factual information, and just don't assume that just because someone wrote something about it is true. Delve in, call people, and ask for references to kind of do your fact finding.
Exactly, because you do not want to make a mistake like just hooking up with the wrong person in
Yeah.
terms of your agent or your attorney or whoever. And that's actually what inspired us to create Dream Retirement in Mexico,
Yep.
where we have interviewed professionals across the board. And it's not only real estate, but banking and healthcare and accounting. And so we created Dream Retirement in Mexico because we wanted to make sure that all the information was accurate, it was up to date, it was trustworthy, it was, it was by top experts. Um, so yeah, so I think that was really great in terms of creating one package or one place where everybody could kind of come and get all that information that they would need, wouldn't you say?
Yes, absolutely. And that's really the key. And it's not just like you packing up and moving. Some of us have pets, so you need to go get your hair cut. You need to go see a dentist. And so, we it's not just, okay, the legalities of everything you need to know, but okay, you have a lifestyle as well, right? And you have, you may have some certain health concerns or health conditions, whether it's you or it's a loved one that's moving down there with you. And so it's really important to kind of be all encompassing and offer that package for one person, because I mean we're asked that all the time. And we started looking like, okay, where can someone find out about all of this? I didn't come across any one person or some type of an offering of some sort that has all that. So the hope here is to provide that for people so they could make a sound decision moving forward.